Interested in a character who had this deeply rooted secret and surrounding it a lot of shame, and who had gotten really good because of that, of sort of cordoning off parts of herself in order to feed her ambition. And then right when she would be at the apex of her ambition, that very thing that helped her get there, that sort of obfuscation and self-denialism, would be the very thing that stopped her from getting that. And what would happen? In that sort of alchemy. And then, you know, I always knew that I wanted her to be a professor, so that kind of fell in pretty quickly, the other story pieces.
Mm-hmm. And so as you're putting it together, you know, are you adopting the point of view? Like, again, the interesting thing about this movie is it's just so multifaceted in terms of its point of view, and each time I see the movie, I kind of lean towards one person's arguments over another. And so for you, as you're writing it, are these people all kind of representative of different sides of yourself in terms of arguments you would have? Are they people you've known or observed?
Yeah, just like the deeply schizophrenic parts of me. I mean, I think a lot of the emphasis on nuance and the ability to see different things in this prismatic way, I feel like a lot of that was something that came out in collaboration with Luca, and was a lot of you know, I think the original script had a much more black and white ending, and when Luca and I started working together, he was very adamant about sort of steering into the idea of nuance, and so I feel like the ability to see so many different perspectives is also due to him. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think when you're writing characters, obviously Alma's the protagonist, so I'm kind of writing characters with an eye towards how they're affecting her, or what's happening to her worldview or emotional center. But yeah, you kind of slip inside them in a way.
Well, Luca, talk from your perspective about that process of working with Nora on the screenplay. I mean, how did the script evolve from the point that you got it and said you wanted to do it, and what were the different ways that you kind of each pushed each other to take it in different directions?
When I got the script, I was very much hit by it, because it was very sparkly and was this very strong world setting, and then these characters were so wonderfully fleshed out, and the dialogue was so inspiring to me. I think that, you know, I love my writers. I love to work with them. It's a great joy. And it's part of the process to me that I can spend time with them, and we can really understand if every idea has been explored, and how to bring to life something once you start to put together the cast, and in particular what is the movie saying in relationship with what we are in the moment where we are doing. One thing that was, I think, very adamant was to let the movie really be evolving and unfolding through the prism of ambiguity, which I thought was a very strong possibility to let an audience make up their mind. And because Nora's idea was rooted in the concept of a very tight thriller, and I thought that to create a balance between these kind of waiting for something to happen and understanding what happened, and yet to make this more about the many ambiguities of individual truth, and the usage of a sort of a facade that you put yourself up to in order to exudes power, exudes privilege, exudes prevalence over the other, and yet to be inside rotten and broken and lost. I think that was interesting.
Well, the ambiguities you talk about is, again, one of the things I love about the movie, but I'm curious, Michael, as an actor, when you get this script and you read it, are those ambiguities, is that something that's exciting to you? Is it challenging? What are the first steps that you take toward trying to figure out who this guy is and how you're going to play him?
Oh, the ambiguity, I think, comes in afterwards, to be honest with you. With each project, I find myself entering in different ways. But usually it's the same format of asking as many questions as I can. and offering them up to Luca, and then it's a collaborative process of answering those questions and learning what he's had in mind for the entire time, and then asking Nora questions, and then the questions never really stop, but they also sometimes don't get answered, and that's okay. Actually, that's like life. So that's usually my way in. And the ambiguity, which is an excellent word for what it felt like playing this piece, because there's a lot of unanswered questions, and the interactions between particularly Frederick and Alma, you know, they have a deep history, but in places particularly early on, with Hank, you know, climbing all over Alma and all that going on, there's a number of things going on, and I think, I don't know how he feels about that, but I also feel that he enjoys watching other people squirm as well.
Well, and you know, Julia's not here, so I guess we can talk about her behind her back. But what was it like having her as a scene partner? Because I feel like the two of you on screen, just that you do convey such a sense of history and like all this stuff between the lines.
Well, when you're thrown into a bed on the first day of shooting with Julia Roberts, it was sort of like, okay. No, to be honest, it was delightful from the first moment, really. It was full of life. She's full of laughter. She's full of joy. She has said herself, she offers love and magic with every project that she does. That's what she brings to every mix of every story that she tells. If she's being self-deprecating about the way the rest of us are trying to work through deeply philosophical portions of the text or whatever, and that's her being self-deprecating. She's remarkable on so many levels, and it's so natural to her. She has great facility with language. She has great facility with thought. She lets you into what she's doing, and at the same time, you feel at ease doing anything with her. You can't ask for a better scene partner in regards to that. And because we both had to work separately, because I kind of showed up while they were in Cambridge doing the school scenes. What was I going to say? I guess we found a lot together in the doing, and that was okay, because I think we both been in long relationships before, understand the devotion and dedication it takes, and I think if you start from a place of absolute love, certainly from my character towards hers, it's a great thing to play. An open heart, and that was something that Luke had mentioned early on, that Frederick is the heart of this story.
Absolutely. Well, as a cinephile, I have to say the greatest thing about this movie to me, Luca, is that you brought Malik Hassan Saeed back as a cinematographer in a feature film, because I, in the 90s, grew up on Clockers and Girl 6 and all these fantastic movies that Malik made with Spike Lee, and I've been waiting for him to shoot another feature for decades. So how did the idea of him come to you, and how did you lure him back?
I saw Clockers, I think it was 1996, correct? And I hadn't done my first movie yet then, and I was like, oh my God, I want to work with this guy. So I was very consistent, because I truly kept wishing to work with Malik since I saw Clockers. I thought that Malik's sense of cinema is astonishing, and the idea of light is incredible. You have a technical approach to your work that is mind-blowing. So then being consistent and setting myself to the task of getting what I want in my life and waiting. I'm a very patient person. Let's say, how many years later? 24 years later, I managed to convince him to do this movie with me.
Well, so Malik, why did you step away from features for so long, and what was it about this one that made you come back?
I don't know, for
was, I mean, it was sort of a deliberate decision. You know, I feel like we give a lot of ourselves, and we give all of ourselves, and to make these films. And you know, I started a family, and I just felt at a certain point that, you know, I need, you know, I'm not a good multitasker, so I wanted to really focus on what I was doing. And it wasn't like I was deliberate about not doing a film. It was just that the right one would have to come. And this one was the right one. It was the right time, you know, for me. You know, something I haven't said to Luca, but this is a reality for me. You know, I saw something like 5 years ago on YouTube, you know, which is incredible because these things that you've never seen before come up. And, you know, it was a fight, you know, it was when Muhammad Ali fought Sonny Liston. And there were some reporters in Harlem just trying to, you know, get reaction. And they caught Malcolm X, coming across the street. Just caught him, it was amazing. And he asked him about the fight. And he said he knew, at a certain point, when he analyzed it, he knew he was going to win because he was in sync with time. And ever since then, like, that became a mantra for me, to be in sync with time. And the crazy thing about this movie, there was so much that happened that thought kept coming back up, that we were in sync with time. And for me, this project, I think, is you know, was important, and I'm thankful for Luca for calling me and asking me to do this project. Yeah.
Well, and what kinds of conversations did you and Stefano and Luca, what kinds of conversations did the three of you have about the guiding principles for the visual style of the movie?
Well, you know, Luca's very precise, which is he's precise with language, and he's precise with visual language and how he shoots. And I like that he was very specific about the references for this. He wanted this film to feel like it was shot in the 80s. And the two references we had for were Sven Nykvist, 1961 to 1972, around that time. And then and most of his work with Ingmar Bergman, and in particular Persona and Silence. But we also screened Cries and Whispers, which was incredible. We screened the print of that. And then The Passion of Anna spoke to me as well for this. And then the other one is Gordon Willis, 1977 to 1988. So we you know, which is great because it's, you know, a lot of times is, like I said, we're in the information age, and there's tons of references. So when you get references, a lot of times they're great, but they're not coherent and they're not cohesive. And this was very precise and specific. And so that was really helpful to just work in there and nuance that, you know. And with Sven Nykvist and Ingmar Bergman, it's about faces and about relationships, in terms of how they're composed in the frame. And then with Gordon Willis, it's world building, you know. And another one is Harris Savides, because he's an acolyte as well. So for me, he was important. And he comes out of that and he lights the room, which is atmosphere. And for us, it was about creating atmosphere in these spaces.
Well, speaking of atmosphere, one of the things that surprised me, Stefano, that you told me the last time we talked was that this was shot in London, so you're recreating Yale in London. And I'm curious for you as a production designer, is that, when you found out you were going to be doing that, is that exciting? Is it daunting? Where do you start with figuring out how you're going to double London for Yale?
When Luca called me, started speaking about this project, he asked me if I like East Coast, because we're supposed to shoot in location. But after a while, I realized that we were going to build Yale in London, and of course, it was exciting. It was a big challenge, and as Malik said a few seconds ago, Luca is very precise in what he does, and we started speaking about references. We started speaking about what he wanted to create in terms of visual. So Bergman was one of the main reference. And answering to your previous question, for example, we did
important camera tests to create the visual imagery of the movie. For example, all the colors of Alma and Frederick's apartment were tested before doing them. So this was the approach. And of course, it was a huge challenge to create Yale and these spaces that actually, in some cases, are the exact replica of some location in New Haven, Yale.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Frederick and Alma's apartment, because that's one of my favorite sets in the movie. And again, every time I watch the movie, I see so many little details that I feel like are placed there to kind of tell you things about these two, and even down to the books. Like, I hate in movies when I see bookshelves, and you can tell they just threw whatever random books were up there. Like, these are actually books these people would be reading. And Luca, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your philosophy about what you wanted that set to convey about these characters. And then, Michael, I want to hear from you about how that kind of production design aids your performance.
Initially, in Nora's script, the apartment was a brownstone house. So the brownstone house is narrow and tall. And let's say the secrets of Alma and these kind of like dynamics of power were vertical. Where I thought that, as I said before, this was more about being on a stage and performing to lure the gaze of everyone to you, particularly Alma. She's like at the center of this stage. So we went for, Stefan and I, we realized that we had to think about this as a sort of horizontal space. So we went for a sort of penthouse. And we were also thinking a lot about cinema. There are many references to famous penthouses in cinema. The idea was to have spaces that could be connected together, like living room after living room, so you can see the depth of field there. There is a moment when, at the end of the party, at the beginning, Fabiola is finishing cleaning the kitchen while Alma is counting the bill to pay her, and you see this long corridor where Alma is sitting at a little desk, and the other side of this frame you see Fabiola in the kitchen. All this connection were something we really spent a lot of time thinking about, almost like a body, you know, like arms and heart. The other aspect was like we really thought very, very much about the history of this family and who this house belonged to initially. And because this movie is about culture as a weapon, knowledge as a mask, we thought that this could have been an interesting thing to reflect upon. So we started to build about the biography of Frederick's family, Frederick's grandparents coming from Europe, from the 30s, running away from Nazi Germany, bringing their knowledge, being famous architects back then passing the baton to their children, who are the parents, and then to him, who then marries Alma, and Alma brings the world into the house. So we layered so much. We had this team of kids, amazing researchers, and their task was to really let us know exactly what book, what records, what paintings, what everything this character could have really owned as a display of power, as a knowledge, as a biography. And I have to be honest, it's true what you said. There is not a single thing in the apartment that is not being completely related to the biography of these characters and to what they're saying or not saying in the way they behave.
Well, and that has to be a great gift as an actor, right, Michael?
Absolutely. He mentioned these things to me in preparation for it, and then arriving in the space, it provides an energy. It provides reference. It provides everything. You don't have to do anything. You just soak it in, honestly. And that's a huge gift, you know. It was all the spaces were astonishing. And
you have to know that Stefan is an architect before being a production designer, and we worked together on a firm of interior design. So in the apartment, he designed the space as an architect. Then he designed the objects. There is like furniture that we designed together in it that has been made for this. So.
Not at all. I mean, it's also a lovely element, thinking that this man grew up here, and that this was his grandparents' space before his, and that he owns it in a way that was deep in his blood, and that when Alma came into his life, she, I'm sure, lightened it and brought love and magic into it in a way that it probably didn't exist. So all of those things affect what we do.
I also think there is a secret in the fact that for her to step into this very important apartment and make it hers, it's a testament that she loves you so much, right? It's a great love story, the Frederick and Alma.
You mean that she
Any other woman would say, no, we change.
Yeah,
we
well,
sell the house
yeah.
and we move out.
You're right. Yeah. No, I hadn't thought of that. You're right. It is an extraordinary relationship. Thank you.
Well, you know, listening to this and watching the movie, and Nora, it seems to me like it must have been exhilarating for you to see actors like Michael and Julia Roberts, you know, bringing this stuff to life. I mean, what was that experience like for you? I mean, were you on set a lot for this movie, and what was the experience like of seeing the actors, and what kinds of conversations were you having with them?
I mean, it's really difficult to find the correct articulation for the feeling of how quickly this came together, and the sort of whiplash of being like, you know, writing this alone in my studio apartment, and then with no agent and no manager, and working like a horrible day job, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I remember vividly getting the text from Alan Mandelbaum, who's a producer at Imagine, and who produced the film.
Hello,
and he's
Alan.
here. And I vividly remember getting the text from him. Yeah! He texted my manager and I, and he was like, so I have some really good news. It seems like Luca Guadagnino might be interested. And I just, like, I like could not go on with my day. You know, it was so wild. And then every subsequent thing was just another moment of complete surreality. It was just like, I mean, I always find myself almost tearing up when we have these Q&As to hear everybody talk about their work, because it just feels like such an honor to have this creative power that was assembled by Luca, and the amount of depth and care that every single department took in their role. It's just it's astounding, and yeah, I mean, you know, it's insane to see actors who you know, who I've revered for so long, who I've studied for so long, who like live in my imagination for so long, combined with that in a director, all coming together. It's an embarrassment of riches. And I feel like maybe in a couple months or something, I'll just get hit with the freight train of all this feeling if that has actually happened.
Well, the performances in the movie, you know, again, are all fantastic. And I'm curious, Malik, to hear from you a little bit about, I'm always curious how cinematographers see their role in a movie like this, because I feel like your cinematography does, it's not just the performances, it's like you showcase them really, really well. And I'm curious, not just about the photography, but how do you see your responsibility as a department head in terms of helping create an environment on the set that's going to allow Michael and Julia and everybody to do their best work? Is that something that you think about, or is that, no, that's Luca's problem?
No, I do think about it. It's something that I've always been attached to, because I feel like the energy on set gets transduced to the film, always. I think it's Ozu cinematographer who actually believe that the person who touches the camera, their energy actually is reflected onto the film. So it's about energy, which is very, very, very real. And it starts with number one, it starts at the top, always, you know, and that was Julia. You know, Andrew said something in an early interview, and he articulated it, in that she created a calm, comforting, like maternal space, because of the material and how tough it was, that it was important for us to feel like we could do what we need to do clearly and comfortably in those moments. So, and we're channeling, you know. I mean, we're trying to channel like what is right and making decisions, and the space, the energy that was created on space on set by way of Julie was phenomenal. And I'm really, and of course Michael and Luca. Michael, I just felt, because, and this is my opinion, I think he usually needs more space, but he was extremely accommodating to what he felt, and very gracious to what everyone else needed, and that to me was amazing as well, incredible. So I mean, again, I'm hoping I'm right about that. But it was what I thought I saw, and so it was. You know, I think it was a special space for us to function in, and I'm really thankful to be a part of it. You know, because we just are there to be in the moment, and it was a calm, comfortable space to be in the moment.
Well, I know I've only got a minute or two left here, so since we're in the Writers Guild Theater, I'll give you the last word, Nora. I'm just curious, you know, you talked earlier about how this had like sort of a more black and white ending originally, and you know, one of the fun things about the movie is that obviously the most important event in the movie is off screen, and I'm just curious for you, did you have to decide as a writer what really happened there? You don't even have to tell me what it is, but did you decide or know what it is, or didn't you, or did it change over the process of writing and making this movie?
Yeah, I knew what happened for me in writing it, and I think that when you're writing these characters, right, it's really easy to sort of get into the slipstream of what they believe happened, and you know, you can. It's important to sort of convincingly argue for them in their perspective while shaping them. But yes.
Well, I won't ask you what it is, because I think part of the fun is not knowing. But I really appreciate all of you coming out and taking the time to talk to me about this. It's a really moving. So thank you.